On this Father's Day, consider the biblical role of the importance of fathers. St. Paul loved the people of Corinth, and he called them his beloved children. For I became your father in Christ Jesus through the gospel. Therefore, a real father is any man who shares in God's role of shepherding, by protecting others from evil, from error, and by witnessing to true worship in God. Failure to do so erodes our relationship with God and with one another, as seen time and again in the Bible. Look at the consequences of poor fathers like Adam, Eli, and Solomon. Consider Adam. He failed to protect his wife Eve from the attack of the enemy. Then he didn't own up to the sin and blamed his wife, while she blamed God. Adam's lack of leadership carried into his sons when Cain killed Abel. The priest Eli was like a father to young Samuel, by helping him hear and obey the voice of God. Yet Eli's own sons were awful priests, who sexually abused women coming to offer sacrifice to the Lord. Eli failed to discipline them, and brought a curse upon their family. King Solomon broke the backs of the Israelites with labor, married 1,000 foreign brides, and took on their foreign gods, and was responsible for splitting up the 12 tribes of Israel. Some good fathers who sinned in their weakness, but were reconciled with God, include Noah and David. Noah listened to God and saved a valuable remnant of creation on his ark. Later, Noah got drunk and lay naked, scandalizing one of his sons, Ham. Ham disrespected his father's moment of weakness, and Ham's descendants built the dreaded Tower of Babel, and became the sworn enemies of Israel when they entered the Promised Land. They were called the Canaanites. King David set a poor example for his sons when he failed to go battle Israel's enemies while his troops were at war. After a leisurely nap, he spied his neighbor, Bathsheba, on the rooftop bathing, and covered his sin of adultery with murder. His sons fought over their father's throne for years to come, practicing every unethical behavior, from rape to incense. The best fathers of the Bible were Job, Jacob, and Joseph. Job was called a blameless and righteous man who feared God and avoided evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. His sons generously provided feasts for their sisters, and Job set an example by offering sacrifices for each of his children for their spiritual well-being. After a rocky youth, Jacob went on to father 12 sons, who became the famous 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph, the husband of Mary, received his mission from an angel in various dreams. He was asked to be a foster father rather than a biological father. He gave up his right to name the child, but bestowed the name the angel revealed to him, and he protected his family by fleeing to Egypt. The gospel credits him as a righteous man. Fellow fathers, if we fail to shepherd those entrusted to us and keep our covenant with God, it has grave ramifications. Consider the golden calf incident. Tired of waiting for Moses' 40-day meeting with God to be over, the men turned to Aaron, Moses' older brother, and asked him to make a god that they could worship that was closer at hand. The people melted down their gold and made a golden calf. Moses, outraged that they had turned to an idol and violated the covenant, threw down the stone tablets and shattered them. The first sons were the original priest, but lost their status when they failed to be faithful to the first covenant. Thus Moses turned the role of the priesthood over to the Levite tribe. St. Paul, the spiritual father of the Corinthians, called them in their second reading to be courageous and to walk by faith. In other words, be faithful to our covenant with God, which is sealed in the blood of Christ and by our oath of fidelity. In fact, the Latin word for oath is sacramentum, or in English, sacrament. We therefore enter into covenant with our God through the first sacrament, baptism, and renew it each time we approach the Eucharist. Men, I call upon you today to be bold and zealous for keeping the covenant as Moses was. Be a good father, and if you are a broken father, be reconciled by renewing the covenant in confession. Our example, good or bad, affects every generation. For Pope Francis said, "At stake is the identity and survival of the family, father, mother, and children. At stake is the total rejection of God's law engraved in our hearts."